That cold case you're listening to? Nasty stuff. But you know what else is a crime? Missing even a moment of whatever you're doing to go on a drink run. Luckily, there's Drizzly, the #1 app for alcohol delivery. With Drizzly, you can compare prices on the biggest selection of beer, wine, and spirits, then get them delivered in under 60 minutes. So download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com today.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening. This is Jay Scott. This is The Hook Rocks, the Ultimate Rock Community Podcast. Hope everybody's doing well. Back from a little bit of a hiatus for a couple weeks. Just had to recharge the batteries, had to concentrate on a few things, the redevelopment of this podcast, and more news will be forthcoming as time goes by, as the days goes by, but I'm pretty excited about it. I know you guys will be too, so look for those announcements here in the near future. But let's continue with more rock and roll discussions here on The Hook Rocks. We have from Hermosa Beach, Mike Longacre, who is a renowned custom guitar builder. I was in his shop.
Good afternoon, Jay.
Good afternoon, man. How you doing?
Awesome. Can you hear me okay all the way over there in
I can
Chicago or wherever it is you get to do it?
I can hear you perfectly. You know, the first time you and I met, I was in town visiting, and my friend Phil, who you are friends with too as well, brought me into your guitar shop with my, at the time, 11 or 12-year-old son, and he had just picked up the guitar. We bought him a cheap guitar, and he was learning, and he didn't really know much, and you taught him his first couple chords. And
I love that.
Yeah, and ever since then, he has been crazed when it comes to guitar. You know, he's learning Zeppelin, he's learning Van Halen. He just came in my room before we recorded this episode, and he wanted me to hear his version of Blackbird by the Beatles. And
oh my goodness, good for you.
Yeah, so he's on his way. I mean, he's one of those kids that really connected with that instrument, the most iconic instrument in rock and roll, at least some people say.
For sure.
And, he has really, gotten into all the guitar players, whether it's Eddie Van Halen, George Lynch, Jimmy Page. And every time I turn around, he's discovered someone that, of course, I know, but he's, discovering. And it's kind of a kick for me because I see that, like, that discovery of a great guitar player that maybe maybe I told him about, 7 months ago or 8 months ago that he was like, oh, whatever. And then all of a sudden he listens to it and he's like, oh my God, and you can hear him start to learn the songs. You can hear him start, to practice. I know when he was doing Over the Hills and Far Away, I mean, for hours, I just heard him going over and over, the song and learning it and getting it down. So I'm pretty excited about him playing.
It's good that he has, that kind of work ethic, but it's all driven from, like yourself and myself. We found passion in music, whether it's building guitars or talking about, just all of the beautiful things music has to offer to kids as young as your son and as old as, some of my clients. And it's really, there's no greater gift than hearing yourself say, my son came in and you showed him a couple of chords, and just being open. You never know who's going to get, infected with that beautiful, beautiful love of guitar playing and take it to the next level of passion. And that's really exciting for me. That's why I do it, for sure.
Yeah, it's exciting to hear him play Ace Frehley songs. It's exciting to hear him play like Frank Hannon from Tesla. He likes those guys that really have a feel, like they play off a vibe. He loves Eddie Van Halen. He thinks Eddie Van Halen is the greatest guitar player of all time. And he listens to that. But I think his sweet spot is, the Mick Mars, the Ace Frehleys, the Frank Hannons, the guitar players like that, really have a lot of air and feel to their playing.
The other exciting thing is his love for those guitar players will morph into whatever he's going to be, and what he, all of those phrasings and voicings and whatever his, vibrato or whatever he's drawing to that particular artist can change, as you know, and everybody else out there in guitar land knows. It's where it starts, and then you get to rediscover and then discover new people that are equally as talented, Gary Moores and Bonamassas and everybody else out there that has, something else to spin on it.
Yeah. There's so many different styles, and I had a conversation with him about a year ago, and he was reluctant to hear the blues, right? I think most young kids are, right? Because it's a lot of what seems like the same type of style, even though it's not, but it seems like that. And I said to him, "Hey man, you're being influenced right now by several different players, and the more you put into your influences, it's going to come out." And
for sure.
Like at the time, I think he was really into Metallica, and he was really into the harder stuff, and that's great, because I like that stuff too. I like the Maidens and I like the Priest. And, he then all of a sudden started listening to like John Lee Hooker and Muddy Waters. And I said, that's going to make you a better guitar player. It's going to make you a deeper guitar player, because all that stuff's going to be mixed in your palette, and it's going to come out and it's going to sound like how you interpret it. But the more you listen to, and whether it's, pop rock or blues or heavy metal or hard rock, all that stuff comes into you, and then it comes out in your playing and how you interpret it. So there's no two guitar players that sound the same. There may be some that sound similar, but usually most guitar players all have their own interpretation of the art of of music.
Well, sure. I would even, go so far as to say it becomes what becomes your voice. It's your own personal voice that comes from a collection of, you're collecting a bunch of crayon colors out there from the greatest crayon makers in the world. And then you're going to color your own stuff and go outside the lines and, mix colors up. And that's the magic of every single person can be different to what you just said.
We're going to get into a lot, but we always start the episode with the same first question, even though I asked you a few questions prior to this, but it is basically the theme of our show. It's the essence of our show. Just like every rock song has a hook that sucks you in, every rock fan has a moment, whether it's a song, an album, a band, or performance, that hooked them on rock and roll. What was it for you?
Wow, that's pretty easy. I think I was probably 14 years old or so, and I heard it was Bad Company, Straight Shooter, Feel Like Making Love, Mick Ralph. That solo on the outro was just, in front of a mirror with a broomstick going, oh man, I'm going to be that rock star someday. And I'm pretty sure that's the album.
Great album. I had the pleasure of seeing Bad Company last year at a festival. I think the guitar.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah, I think the guitar player was Howard Leese, who used to be in Heart.
Yeah.
And Paul Rogers sounded amazing. I mean, for a guy that's
Go figure.
For a guy that's in his 70s,
voice of rock to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just can still carry the note, can still, perform. He sounds really smooth. I mean, of course, does he sound the same as he did when he was in Free or Bad Company? No, but he's pretty close. And to be that age, it was just amazing to see. And of course, they did all their hits and all their, their standard songs. But it was great. I've never seen Bad Company with Paul Rogers before, and that was a pleasure to see. Wow,
super, super great experience, and to be able to say you got to hear those songs with the voice of Bad Company.
Absolutely. So where did it go from there? Where did it go from Bad Company? In your growth into guitar playing, into making music, into building custom guitars?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I was really, really a small kid growing up. And if there's kids out there listening, just, you do get older and you do get bigger and your hands change and your attitude about music will change. But I was so excited about it, and then got like a Japanese Hoya Dove copy and tried to go do it, probably YMCA at that time. And it was, you're learning, what do we do with the drunken sailor? Just tragic. Who's going to use math? Who's going to use B minor 7, it's really dumb. But I got really quickly turned off to it just because my hands weren't very big, and you want instant gratification at that age, I think. I mean, we're in a different world today, but for me, it wasn't until like maybe sophomore year of high school, I saw a couple of guys that were playing in a band, and it was laughable to me that I just looking at them like, God, I could do that. And probably better. And that was when there was a shift in desire, and passion had yet to happen, obviously, because I hadn't even done anything more than look at myself in a mirror with a broomstick as a kid. But that was really the turning point of realizing and seeing guys I knew that, are they really, is it possible they could be better than me at something that looks so easy? And went out and bought a Les Paul Deluxe, a 74 that needed a lot of work, and started doing it, myself, trying to figure that stuff out. And that's when I really went to another level. Had a couple of friends teach me a couple of chords, not unlike your son, popping in the shop, and they were really open and willing to show me a couple of things that would help me. And that was it. I ran into them like 5 months later, and they were like, oh my God, I was doing way more than they were at that point. So the passion kicked in, realizing that we can do things. I tell my students now, it's not hard, it's just new. And it really is a great perspective to change the way you learn things. So I think that's pretty much how it started.
And who were, some more of your influences? You talked about Mick Ralphs. Who else were you listening to when you first started?
I had growing up, my parents, they had that, remember the record club, right? Capitol Record Club. You got a record every week or every month or whatever it was. So all of those, huge Beatles fan, Elton, all of those songs, right into Three Dog Night and then Kiss. I didn't really know what to think of that because my palette had been really dictated more by all of this amazing song structure like the Elton John's. Like, just come on, there's nothing like that. And then even growing up now, where I said your son can still find new people. I ran into learning who Elliott Smith was, like not even 10 or 15 years ago, and just changed my life, changed the way I write songs, the way I teach, the way my ear hears. Just unbelievable. If you guys haven't checked out the deep catalog of Elliott Smith, the writing, melody lines, it's like a tapestry of sound, that guy, with one guitar and him. Unbelievable.
I remember the Elliott Smith book on your table in your shop. And
oh yeah, that was another gift from someone in the shop. Because I've done so many Elliott Smith. I'll tell you a funny story about the Elliott Smith stuff. That there was a girl that used to go out with him, and she lived here in Manhattan Beach, and I was playing a beach party or something with her, and I was just playing a couple songs. I think it was probably God, I don't know, the whole gamut of everything that's out there to play at barbecues. But I think it was a Jeff Buckley song, and she's like, "God, you sound just like Elliott Smith," and I'm like, "Who's Elliott Smith?" I had no idea. I really didn't. And she told me this story about meeting him in New York and then going back to Portland, and she gave me the CD, and I put it in my CD thing, and she was really musically connected, knew a lot of people. So I'm like, if she says that I should listen to this, I should. And I just didn't get it till the last song. And then I backed it up and got the next one. I mean, what I mean by that is I understood what he was trying to do with his music and lyrics and melody lines and everything. And next thing I knew, I was completely infected by this guy and started learning his songs to the point of I knew like maybe 5 or 6 of them, and I decided to make a channel on YouTube specifically for Elliott Smith. It's called Between the Color Bars. That's the channel if you guys ever want to look at it. But it turned into 7, into 10. People were calling me the Ghost of Elliott. I've done 47 of his songs. There's 500,000 people that have viewed them. And I've ended up doing Elliott Smith benefits here in Hermosa, like at St. Rock. We sold the thing out on a Wednesday night doing a thing for free arts for abused children. It was one of his things that he, I think, helped start it, or he was just really involved with it. And the whole, not the family, but the people from the group that we were doing the benefit for showed up and spoke. And it was really crazy to see that many people in a little room to hear somebody else doing Elliott Smith covers. It was really crazy for me.
It's interesting because I discovered Elliott Smith from the Good Will Hunting movie because he does the soundtrack. Mm-hmm. And I remember watching the movie. I'm like, who is this? This music is so defining, and it's so
absolutely.
And it's so like, it doesn't overwhelm you, but it creates such a vibe that I'm like, I gotta hear this guy's music. So I got into Elliott Smith, and that opened the doorway for me because I was always been a rocker, and I'm still consider myself a rock and roll guy. And I listened to Elliott Smith, and it opened up the door to Jeff Buckley and Pete Yorn and Ryan Adams and Butch Walker.
Those are all right there, yeah.
Yeah, and all those singer-songwriters that I find amazing. I'm a huge Pete Yorn fan, huge Butch Walker. Love a lot of Elliott's music in his catalog. I love, obviously Jeff Buckley didn't have a lot of music because he died tragically, as did Elliott did. As Elliott Smith did. But I just love that whole singer-songwriter era of like the late 90s, early 2000s, that I really feel that, when rock and roll kind of went away for a little bit, for me, that was that vacuum that kind of helped me get through it. And I really got into a lot of those artists that I still go see live today. Whenever they come to Chicago, I just feel that they're just incredible.
Yeah, boy, I can't wait to get live music back too, right? Everybody, I mean, all of us, we're all just kind of floating out here in the ocean in a raft waiting for something to happen where you can see live music again, not through a stream or it sounds like it's just the wave of the future for the next year anyway.
Yeah, it's really hard to gauge what's going to happen. It's really hard to tell. I mean, when you look at the tech companies, which really keep track of things, and they really, decipher information. Usually, the way people should, they're telling people that not to come back to the office till next July. So does that mean that we're going to be in this for another year? It looks like all the tours that were coming through have all been pushed back to next year. So it's a big question mark. It's are the clubs...
Well, surely in my opinion, even if they opened it all tomorrow, they're going to get maybe 50% of the people responding because everyone is so afraid of everything that I think you'll have the people that are like, no, I'm just going. I'm going to go to the show. I haven't had any music and I want it, and I'll be as careful as I can while I'm there or whatever. But concerts are even standing in line to get in. I mean, there you are. You're in the place where you cannot be, and it's a really sticky situation to even pretend that in February we'll probably be able to open the venue and people will want to come and buy the tickets ahead of time. But no one knows. It's just the unknown.
Well, there are so many unknowns with live music. It's the venues. Are the venues going to be able? I mean, how many venues are going to die out as a result of this? And it's usually they're going to be the smaller clubs. I mean, I know St. Rock's is for sale. So what does that mean? Is someone going to buy it and redevelop it into something else? Is someone going to buy it and, who's going to buy a rock and roll club right now when there's no live music? You know what I mean?
Well, especially when you can't even turn it into a bar, which
Right.
is what it was when they bought it. So you can't, it's, I don't know. And I'm not saying that he'll never sell it, but you're buying, hoping that the climate's going to change in foreseeable future, because you're paying rent until you can't. He needs to get out of the lease and everything, and it must be really hard. I loved it. He just closed and said, "We'll see you when we get to come back." And now it's the writings on the wall that there will be no coming back. But in his defense, he's the one that does all the beach life concerts down here too, and that whole thing went down too.
Yeah.
So,
but it's
you reinvent.
But it's also the artists too. When we think of the artists that are over 50, 60, sometimes 70 years old, we do know this virus affects older people. So are you you going to go to a small club and be on stage and not know if someone in the crowd who has a fever or who has it spreads it to somebody, spreads it to the person in front of them, and before you know it, it's spreading to the people who are on stage, or that microphone that you're singing through. How many people have touched that microphone that day and or sung into that microphone before you sang into it? So there's a lot of things to think about with what's happening, and no one really knows. I mean, that's the scary thing.
Yeah, I think you get your finger on the pulse of each one of those venues that's going to let go.
Yeah.
And keep your ear to the ground. And when you hear there is a vaccine or anything, just pull the trigger on all of them, because everyone will go out as soon as that is, because that's the X factor, right? Where no one's like, no, it's going to go on forever. It's the new normal.
Right.
To go nowhere and have restaurants open and close at will. My biggest fear for everyone in every town, everywhere, is winter is coming. And that we know when winter is here, because you turn on the TV and it's like NyQuil and Theraflu and everything else, because why? Because everyone gets the sniffles and the coughs. But now everyone is so preloaded with this fear of this thing that as soon as they have a chest cough, I have it, and they're going to inundate the hospitals, and everything will close down. And everyone gets the flu every year, but it'll be different now. It won't be, I don't have the flu. It'll be like, oh my God, I must have this thing. And that is just not something I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, we've had a lot of pushback on the e-learning for schools and a lot of cancellation of youth sports, high school sports. And people are
everywhere.
Like, why? The numbers are going down, And the only thing I can think of as a reason as to why they're still shutting things down and forcing kids to e-learn and canceling youth sports is because they know how much capacity they're going to have based on regular flu. They know that number based on the history of every year during the flu season, and they can determine whether, in between 2 to 3 percentage points of what the capacity percentage is going to be. Is it going to be 40%, 50, 60%, depending on where you're at, depending on the hospital? They know that number is going to come in from September to December, right?
Right.
They don't know.
Well, that's just from past data.
Right, and that's just from past data. That's from a regular flu.
Right.
So they don't know what the capacity is going to be with the fear of COVID, and is there going to be a second wave? So they don't know that. They don't know that number is going to be during the flu season. So that's why they're like, we got to shut everything down, because we just don't know what it's going to be like.
If you want to test your theory on, we think there's going to be a lot of people going in there from fear. Next time you're out around in the street and someone does a typical regular sneeze, just look around you.
Yeah.
Everyone hears the sneeze like it's a brick going through a storefront window. It's really, really aware. Everyone is aware of a cough or a sneeze where you heard it a million times in your lifetime, but it's a new way of hearing things.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you do a sneeze or you do a cough, surely, you know, making something with crushed red pepper and you sneeze in the kitchen and you know, that the joke is out there. Your son's out there like, oh, you got COVID,
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
that's where we're going to be when everybody really is sneezing and coughing like they do every year. Anyway, I'm not happy about it. It's going to be bad.
And can you imagine being in a general admission club or small theater and where you're packed in like sardines and someone coughs or someone sneezes?
Good point. Yeah.
You know, you're like, oh my God, what are you doing? Get away from me. You know, I mean, there may be brawls that start because of you coughed on me, you sneezed on me. I mean, you know.
Is that a mosh pit? No, somebody sneezed.
But that's, I mean, I know
Awesome.
like when you're in, you know, a 2,000 general admission theater, capacity theater, and, you know, you're packed in shoulder to shoulder, asses to elbows, and two people back sneezes, dude, you're going to turn around and you're going to be pissed. You're going to be like, what are you doing? Why are you here? You don't feel good? Why did you come here? And then someone says, F you, fuck you, this and that, and then
we are so far from that day. No, I mean, that's why they're not going to do it.
Right.
That's why everybody that has a club is like, man, we're done.
Yeah, the COVID brawls will start happening, you know? And
how about the opposite? What's it like? You're in Chicago, right?
Right.
What part of Chicago are you in?
I'm in the northwest suburbs of Chicago, so I'm about 30 minutes from the city.
All of those office buildings where everybody had to go home, now they know, the businesses that own these businesses, these companies, know that they can have everybody work from home. They don't have the overhead. They don't have the rent. They don't have anything. They can have everyone work from home now. All of those work from home places, you know, that have popped up everywhere, where a live work situation, wowzers.
Yeah.
Like some of the biggest companies in the world, you know, WeWork. What's going to happen? Oh my God.
Well, look at, like I talked about before with Google. Google told everybody don't come to the office till next July.
Yeah.
You know?
That's nuts.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't think office properties are going to come back anytime soon. I think they're going to be vacant. Well, it's going to be crazy.
Then somebody is going to step forward and they're going to make it housing. But they'll have to have infrastructure for, you know, sanitation and toilets.
Well, yeah, but here's what I was thinking about that. Like, you know, some of that stuff's going to be converted, but how many new apartment complexes can you possibly have? You know, it's you know what I mean? Like some of it will be, but you know, what are they going to do with this stuff? I'd have no idea.
Yeah.
No idea. I mean, when you think of any big city like Chicago, New York, you know, wherever, you know, Boston or you know, in the high rises with the office. I mean, those places are loaded with just offices.
You know, those apocalyptic movies where there's perfectly, like, brand new buildings with perfectly washed glass, and there's no one in the street.
Yeah, because
no one's there bustling in town, because there's no restaurants open there. There's no work going on. It's almost, whoa, come on.
Yeah.
And everybody's been posting lately that, you know, Mad Max was made in 2021. Just saying.
Very true. Very true. You know, sometimes, you know, life imitates art. So, so getting back to the guitar and what the guitar has meant to rock music, how it has evolved over time from the 50s to the 60s to the 70s. I mean, even before with the blues guys in the 30s and the 40s to what it is now and what the future is. You know, I mean, you are on the front lines of guitar playing. I mean, you have customers come in, you have a demographic that comes in and wants this and wants that, wants you to do this to the guitar and build that. And then you have the younger generation that doesn't have the guitar player, the guitar hero, that pulls them in. That, you know, I mean, there's a few young guitar players out there that I think are excellent. You know, like Tyler Bryant, who's an excellent guitar player. The guy from Rival Sons. You know, there's some really good guitar players that are out there. but are they front and center like they were when you and I were growing up? And right now I don't think they are.
Less of them when we were around.
Pardon me?
I think there was much less of them around when we were growing up, so it made it easier to latch onto a particular icon that had been given some sort of notoriety, whereas now you have so much social media input from, all the different channels of, hey, here's my new song from my phone right to your ears. And I'm 6 years old and I can, do Eruption. It's really crazy.
Yes. I mean, I do agree with you in the extent where, people can publish any of their music online, whether it's, YouTube or Spotify, anyone can do that. Right.
Well, just learn it.
Just learn it. Right. But when you have, I don't know if there are as many guitar heroes in today's age as there were when you and I were growing up.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. And
everybody's copying everybody.
Everybody's, influenced by the same people, and there are a few innovators out there, but no one near the Hendrix and the Page and the Van Halens and the Gilmores and the Becks and the Claptons. There are very few names that are out there that are up and coming in guitar, and everyone likes to say the kids don't have the attention span as they did when you and I were growing up, and then maybe there is something to that. But what I think is when you think of today's rock and roll, the emphasis isn't on guitar. The emphasis is not on who's playing those riffs. It's more spread across all the members of the band. Very few bands have guitar solos in their songs or consistent guitar solos or, putting the guitar front and center. It's just a different way to present the music than it was. I mean, when you always knew the singer and the guitar player and the drummer and then the bass player, unless the drummer was like a Tommy Lee or a John Bonham or something like that, that was very marketable and very presentable to a younger generation. But I just don't think that there is that emphasis on guitar that pulls the younger kids in to like, oh, wow. Like, what is that sound? Like, I remember the first time I heard Eruption when I was 9 years old or 8 years old.
Yeah.
It was like, what the fuck is this? What is he doing? And I don't know if kids have that today.
Yeah, it's more, they're able to, like your son, Metallica, wow, there's these things, and you kind of, I don't want to say you grow out of them, but you go through that phase of this part is really intriguing, and I would like to learn more about that, as a student. And then you can, get into somebody, like Buddy Guy, and it's like, how do you bend the string that far? And it's a new dynamic that maybe you're interested in, or in Elliott. Like, how do you play that chord? And realizing that there are these weird tunings, and there's just so much to be found, but I don't think they're that hungry. I think the kids today are not as hungry for growth with everything that could make them making a better wheel,
Or innovative. One of the things that we've talked about on the podcast is the effect of cover bands. People playing other people's music, and that's fine and great. But what it does essentially is it kills an up-and-coming rock scene or up-and-coming new music in that area, because on a Friday, Saturday night, people want to go out and hear music that they're familiar with instead of going to take a chance on a band that they've never heard, that maybe they heard that was good from their friend. So what that does, and you mentioned the YouTube, like people, how many covers of Eruption can you watch on YouTube, right? So there's all these people posting that stuff, and there's no emphasis of something new. It's like, let's play what Eddie Van Halen played, or let's play what Randy Rhoads played, or Jimmy Page, or Hendrix, or whatever.
Right.
And there's no one, or maybe there are, maybe I just haven't discovered them yet, but I don't think there's anyone playing something like, hey, check this out. This is a hot young guitar player that's just absolutely phenomenal and doing something completely different. I don't know if there is that.
Yeah, and I think I think to that is you have kids that are very bombarded by all of this input from all the different social medias and life in general. I mean, it's crazy what we put them through, or what our world puts them through now. And you have a younger son now. Mine's 22, and he fears for kids coming up behind him, because he's seen the world. He's lived in Syracuse for 4 years, going to college there, and he came back with he's just bent on trying to help the world and take the hit on making the dollar instead, and make a message and change things with oil companies and pesticides. And it's really beautiful, but it would never have happened without the speed of everything going inside their ears and their eyes. And I think when it comes to music, you can't ask them to listen to more or do more, because they're just hearing 1,000 things a day. And I think it's different than when we were growing up, where something could be played and the radios decide, what they were going to play. And generally it was something that was chosen by a group of people that this is the most marketable song. So the masses will probably like it. And we did. And I think the kids today, like we were speaking earlier, there's millions of people posting thousands of things a day, and new people making songs. If the song is good, people will attach to it. How many times have you been in a nightclub back pre-COVID? And I've had this happen in recent past, like within the last 2 years. And you hear a star, a great artist that you love, playing all of these great songs that they've done, and then they go into something that has never been played, and we're working on it, and people give it a few seconds, maybe 30 seconds, let's call it. And if it doesn't grip them, they just start talking. And the people on the stage just lose their shit. And they're like, shut up. If you guys don't, we're trying to do something up here, and it just frustrated me so much. Like, if it's good, you get the quiet. People will shush each other. But if it's not, don't tell us to shush, because we paid to see you. Give me something that I like. So I think that's where we're all at right now. Is it's like, is there good stuff to be had?
There's
happened more than once.
Right, and I've seen that. I've seen artists do that. However, there is a difference in the club crowd or the concert crowd that was not what it was when I was younger. There's everyone, even when someone goes on stage and they're playing the songs that you want to hear, there's an element to the crowd, or there's a percentage of the crowd that has no interest in watching.
Yeah, disconnected completely.
They're completely disconnected. They have their Facebook Live, or they're having a conversation. I've done a couple episodes with my friend Chris called Tales of the Douche, and we've covered the loud talkers at shows. And you're like, I went and saw, oh gosh, I'm drawing a complete blank here, but I went to a festival in Madison, Wisconsin, and I wanted to see this artist, and I know I'm going to remember it when we're done, but I can't remember it right now. And I'm watching, me and my buddies are watching, and there's this group of people behind me, and there's this girl just talking as loud as she can. And I turned to one of her friends. I'm like, she needs to be quiet or go somewhere else. He's like, yeah. I know. And he was very apologetic and stuff. But it's just a lack of respect for people around you and people that are on stage. I also see, like you said, the artists that we know and love make new music, and I think it's really good. But when they play it live, you see people, that's when they go get the beer. They have no interest in hearing new music, which is another problem in itself. The lack of interest in new rock and roll, even though a lot of it's really, really good.
Noted. But I'm also saying that even if you're going to get a beer and someone starts playing something that affects you,
right,
and it sounds, let's just call it what it is. It sounds good. You're like, oh man, where was this thing?
Yeah.
Or they've moved on and morphed into something, the next level of them. And it's it's going to affect you. I don't care what you're doing or where you're going. Even if you're talking to someone and you hear something that's like, wow, this is really good. Shut up for a minute. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where it can still do it. And I've seen that happen too. And there's nothing better than hearing everybody shush everyone.
Right.
That's when you really own the room.
Good point. Excellent point on that. I mean, there are artists that, want to play their new music, and sometimes it's not as good as what they're working on is not as good as, what people want to hear. And you're right. If it's good, people will stop and listen. Or, you also have just people that won't listen to anything, so.
Yeah. No, that's true.
Yeah. As far as the guitar.
And there's those people that go out to those shows just to be out. Right. And having a drink with their friends, which I respect that too. It's like, hey, our friends, they like that band, and so they're up front, but we love that club, so we're going to go too. And then all of a sudden, because I'm not your number one fan, I'm the enemy. As long as you're not like with Jay in front of you and you're being a blabbermouth and ruining his experience, I think it's okay to not, be in the back of the room and being mindful of everybody else. Everyone should get their little shove on that one.
As far as the guitar goes, you've been in this business for a while. Where do you see the instrument evolving? Where do you see it going?
Well, for what it's worth, this last 4 months has just been almost like I'm being punked or something. I've never seen this many guitars go off the walls, and these are not, Japanese Strats or, Korean Epiphones or things that people just want to have something to do during the day while they're at home. These are very specialized instruments in here that are owned by stars or very light or super dark fretboards or, just a perfect specimen of a vintage piece. And people are coming in and buying these things from, $5,000 to $25,000, $30,000 guitars. And I've been trying to figure out what it is. I think it's just talking to our friends locally that are, vintage buyers as well and musicians that buy it from me. And we've just decided it must be a combination of mortality. Like, wow, I've always wanted one of those. When am I going to do this? And the stock market is weird right now. And this is something that will always be, once you buy one from Mike, there's less of them out there. Like I'm looking at a 65 white special, which is like an SG shape with P90s. The chrome is beautiful. It's just sitting here. And it has the original case, which now is like to the point of like $600 for that particular style of case. And someone's going to come in and buy that thing in the next month. It's just nuts. So I think that's the climate of guitars lately. People are out buying a lot of them that are expensive.
Now, these are buyers. These are players that, want to have that particular guitar. However, buying those guitars, how does that impact the future of the instrument? Like when you talk about anyone under 30 years old, and into the teen years in high schools and whatnot, what do you see down the road with the instrument? Do you see it maintaining the aura that it has? Do you see it become less of a focus? Because like we just talked about, when you listen to rock music today, there's, there are some great guitar players out there, but there's not an emphasis on it. There's not the guitar heroes that were, do you think that's going to stop the trickle down effect of younger people playing the instrument, which then when they get older and they start having more disposable income or income to buy a guitar, they'll go out and buy a vintage or something like that? What do you see in that aspect?
I see that. That's a great question too. I think in my experience, the younger people come in and they're the first ones to go, what difference does it make? I have one of these things that plays just as good as that guitar, or, it looks the same. And, I've got a Japanese copy of a Les Paul, a white custom. And, what's the difference? Well, The difference is, that particular era was like a Tim Shaw era where the pickups were wound and stamped in a particular way, so they had control over all of that, and the woods they used are older. I mean, all of the vintage stuff, anything that was even made from the 60s, that wood was cultivated in the 40s. And now the tree that's grown for that thing is, it matures in 20 years, not 50 years, so they can make more of them. And so the wood is more wet, it's heavier, it's more fibrous, it doesn't route the same way, they can't use the same Brazilian fretboards and everything. And I think to what you're saying, the younger kids, when they get older, they can appreciate it because their ear will be tuned to what it is they're listening to. Their fingers will be tuned to what it is they're feeling, and the weight and the colors, even the aesthetic of a dark Brazilian board over what's now Pau, right? Where you have Pau Ferro, you have different types of woods that look kind of like rosewoods, but they're more caramel color than dark chocolate color. And that wood is not nearly as dense. The tone is not anything like it. And pickups, you can always stick an old set of pickups in a guitar. So I think those kids, when they have disposable income, and we have shops like mine, and there's a lot of them out here that are Imperial Vintages. Some friends of mine, they have three stores now. They started with one little one that like a month before I opened mine, and those guys move a lot of guitars. They have a lot of beautiful vintage stuff. They have some great players that are in that business, and we talk about this stuff all the time. We see it as, people are going to always want that guitar they wanted when they were a kid, or their star had. And once you have the resources, to what you were saying, am I going to buy that? Yeah, why not? There's less of them. Once I buy this one, there's less of them out there.
But do you think that the younger generation coming up is going to have that? I mean, there's always going to be guitar players. It's not like the guitar. Yeah. It's not like like people like to say rock and roll is dead. Rock and roll is not dead. It's just having trouble getting, noticed. It's having trouble being relevant right now because for whatever reason, advertisers want the hip hop, they want the pop music that is, connecting with the generation. Rock and roll hasn't adapted to the newer times like other forms of music have. So with that being said, is there going to be a generation that loses out on the mystique of the guitar and the aura of the guitar and the enthusiasm to play it? There's always, like I said, going to be guitar players like my son and, other kids at different high schools growing up or junior highs.
Yeah.
But,
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think they'll always be there. It's even easier to access it now. You can plug a guitar into your phone, for crying out loud. You can, they have these new amps that everybody's just raving about that take 6 months to get one made for you, but they're, the size of a loaf of bread, and they sound incredible, and they have all the chords and shapes in them, and drummers, bass players that will go to key with whatever you're playing. And so the technology today is allowing it to be easier and easier to make yourself, what would you call it, acceptable faster. Where I was like going to the YMCA to learn, you can buy an amp that can teach you chords and how to play them and how to follow along with the rhythm, because it's not a click track, it's a drum track. And, it's really unbelievable what things are coming up. And I don't know how those guys can make a guitar for $200, whoever it is out there, they're doing it and selling them. And, I get to set them up because they're just tragic coming over in a container across the ocean. But in the end, you're going to come in my shop and you're going to pick one of these things up and you're going to play it like your son, and seeing the guitars that were on the albums of your dad's, and knowing that there's something really special about that, because I've never seen one like that, So I think those kids are still going to go to the top. The cream will rise to the top, and thank God we don't have every kid and their brother coming in here to buy one of these just because he can hold one, because I wouldn't have any inventory.
What do you think about the problems with, Gibson or Guitar Center, obviously they're not, I mean, Guitar Center doesn't do custom guitars. They have what's on the wall and people come in. And where do you see that side of the business going? Like, what do you think Gibson's going to be able to get out of the issues that they're having? You think Guitar Center is going to be able to pull out of that stuff? What's your opinion on that?
Well, I think every guitar manufacturer is in a challenge right now because all the people that are at home want to play a guitar and they want it for less. And every business that's in business is there for the bottom line. And if there's no bottom line or less and less of it because you hire a lot of people to make them and insurances and taxes for everything else, you got to try to come up with a way to make it work. Guitar Center, I think they're going to be in trouble because they're buying, warehouse size, Home Depot size places where you're selling disco balls to trumpets. And it's just people buy online now. And this new future we have of not being able to play live venues kind of speaks to, am I really going to buy a guitar that's going to cost more than, I don't even have a job. So I think that's really going to nail them down. And they've, I think as I've understood, they've been in trouble for quite some time and sold the business multiple times and, made it look good on paper to the buyer. But I think that is just that's going to go the way of the dodo bird as far as having big stores. They already own all of the big chain online shops, like Musician's Friend and everything else. So why bother? People are buying them there instead and getting it shipped to their house. Those are the people that don't have to hold it and feel it and know that this tree was different than that tree. I mean, you can have three guitars that are the same year, same design, same everything, and they're going to sound different. I know that sounds crazy, but they do. And I've got it in here to prove it. But as far as Gibson goes, they had someone come in that's really, really good at taking companies that are flailing around in the water. Now, I will say Henry, who was with Gibson initially, was a guy that had his own ideas and what he wanted to do. And everybody gets their chance to do that. When you own the company, you do what you want, but you kind of try to reinvent the wheel a little bit with guitars that were tried and true, and it didn't work out. And then tried to have a yard sale on, like, the Memphis plant went away and they moved everything over into Nashville now to build all the hollow bodies in the custom shop where they used to do only solid body work. And so the new guy came in and he, I think, as I understand, he was like the guy that rebranded Levi Strauss and a ski company, the K2 or Nordica or one of these big ski companies. And that's his thing. He figures companies that do well, that have had a history, and he plays guitar. He likes music. So I think Gibson's going to be okay.
That's good to hear.
I'm independent, so it doesn't mean one way or the other to me. But I mean, I have Fenders and Epiphones and PRS and, everything in here. But I did feel, I was nervous that what if somebody buys that company that people don't look at as a positive change, then I become part of that company. So I backed off a little bit, but I've only bought the acoustics from Bozeman, and those guys have been so beautiful to me from day one on information and construction, and people that have bought guitars, even from Chicago, that have come in here with problems with the guitars, and they honor it for me, not even a Gibson dealer anymore. So that is just, to me, above and beyond. Every person over in Bozeman, I have nothing but the greatest to say.
Now, when you are looking for inventory, what is the process for your shop? For those that are listening that are not familiar with, the custom guitar shop, what is the process?
Yeah, the model.
How does it all begin?
Well, at Mike's Guitar Parlor started out really as being a place where you could come and buy a guitar that you weren't pressured to buy. You could buy, or even just play. You could just come in and play a $25,000, $30,000 instrument, and then play one that's like $3,000. That's a remake of that guitar from modern times in Bozeman. So that was thus the Parlor title. And I really I set out to to make a place that would change the experience of finding the guitar of your dreams. And that was 6 years ago. And so now when I need another guitar that's, from 1959 or from 2020, I've been buying for, more than 30 years, custom vintage star-owned guitars. And just because of my industry before, that allowed me to have access to those people. So I kind of put it out there. It's like looking for a white driver's side door for a Ford Bronco. I put it out there to the guys that have all of those teletypes, and they just are able to locate something for me. And I've been buying for so long, they know that I'm not just fishing. I want that one guitar from that one star, or this weird color on this year guitar. And then I put it out there for those guys. And, that's what they do for a living. And it's hard to have access to those guys. And then I have the ability as a luthier to do all the setups and corrections to get it back to wherever it was in its heyday or whatever it needs to be. And that pretty much covers all my vintage guitars and newer guitars. Sometimes I'll buy like a one of one color, like a Paul Reed Smith or a Gibson Firebird or something. And then I'll put custom pickups in it that I order and custom wiring and make it even more special. So if you have, one of these guitars, no one on the planet is going to have another one of them. And that makes it fun for me. I only have 80 hangers in here right now. So I'm very particular about what goes on it. If it's a signed guitar, by somebody, or photographs with the person playing it, Slash or, Buck Cherry or whoever it is, he's just walking around the room. It's so fun to have something so dense with history and one of one personality, if you want to call it. So that's pretty much what my shop is all about. Donuts and mimosas on the weekends. On Sunday, it's like church in here. Everyone can come and play. And there's, all the local musicians. I buy and sell guitars for them, and I build custom guitars for them. It's true. I can't even believe I have to pinch myself once in a while that I get to do it. It's unbelievable in this town.
When you're deciding what to do with a guitar, is it more about restoration, or is it more about just tricking it out, making it sound like unbelievable?
Well, both things, are what sell a guitar. And my job is to find something that I've learned in my experience that if I like it, I'm a pretty good cross section of what's out there, and you're probably going to like it or go, wow, look at that. I've never seen that. That's what I said, that kind of thing. And then, customizing it might just be changing, like on all acoustics, every acoustic, whether it's new or vintage or old, I make bone saddles myself and maybe replace the nut or cut the nut to make it play the way I prefer it. And there are players that prefer, some higher action, some bluegrass guys and stuff, and I can make that change on the sale. But it's in my experience, we all kind of like the same stuff. I mean, in my demographic. So I'm 56 years old, and I've been buying and playing guitars for 35 years. And, there's everything from 1952 Scotty Moore era hollow body gold things in here to, race car one of one custom builds that I've done that were, because I used to build Formula One cars for 12 years, and I built this, like, the Ford versus Ferrari kind of wall over here I built a Gibson scaled Telecaster with P90 Alnicos, like in a 54 Les Paul, and made the neck maple with jumbo frets in Gibson scale. And it's in these Ferrari colors, and on the back plate, it's got like Enzo Ferrari's autograph and vinyl on a clear cover for the control, so that it's like, on a Ferrari, they have a window over the engine. It kind of lets you see in there. And it's just kind of interesting stuff. Or carbon fiber, appointments that I've custom fabricated from guys that used to build all my 3-element wings for like Swift racing. It's just fun stuff for me to do. but it ends up being fun for the customer because you've never seen anything like it for sure.
And that's a great gig to have, like doing something that you love and making a living out of it.
Absolutely. I'm so lucky that it worked. I'm in a demographic here where, if I walk to the front of the store here, there's, a 12-foot piece of glass. You stand here and I can hit the ocean with a rock from here. It's full of palm trees and you can see the whole promenade. And then, there's coffee shops and upscale restaurants and everything around here. So those people have the resources to buy these guitars, and it makes it more fun for me because every time one sells, I have to go find something or build something new. And that's where I really feel lucky. This is my favorite part. Other than teaching kids like your son a couple of chords and hearing, a year later that, oh my God, he's playing everything. He won't shut up, this kid.
Yeah, he's got his eye on the Gibson Les Paul with like the red trim on the outside. The one, like Ace Frehley's pretty much known for it. It's got the red with the wood grain. And he was, he was looking up. He's like, that's the one I want to get. I want to get a Gibson. And I'm like, well, save your money. And then he's online looking at prices. He's like, Dad, it's like $3,200. I'm like, well, I'm like, I'll help you out a little bit, but save up some money, and if that's what you want, that's what I go. Have you ever played, a Les Paul? He's like, oh, only at Guitar Center when I go to Guitar Center, and I'm like, all right, I'm like, because it's a lot heavier than what you're used to playing, but he's got his eyes set on that. He loves that guitar. I mean, I go I'm like, that's a guitar for like legends, I'm like, that's a kick-ass looking guitar, and that's what he wants, and. Well, he's saving for it, and I think one day he'll actually have it.
I love that. It was really great getting the chance to get to know you a little bit more intimately this way about music and passion and the way the world is going in guitars and just the nature of the COVID effects on our venues and how people are going to be moving forward in this world. It's really awesome for you to take the time and talk to me and ask. Even I'm honored that you're asking for my opinion. Well,
we're going to do this again. I loved having you on. It was a great episode. There's so much more about the instrument that I want to dive into. And I think, we'll do this quarterly. I'd like to do it quarterly where I have you on and we just talk about the instrument and different players.
That sounds fun. Even the changes that happen at real time for us.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's great. I loved having you on. When we walked into that shop that one day and my son sat down and he just didn't know anything about guitar and he said, all right, move your hands here, put your fingers here. And that's, your A chord and that's, and all that stuff. And then like he came back home, started playing the guitar, and he just kind of took it from there and learned. And he's basically taught himself by ear. He's never had any other lesson besides that impromptu thing that, you did with him for like a half hour. And he
really just so beautiful.
Yeah. Everything he's done now is all by ear. And, it was funny. He was trying to learn a Tesla song and he was trying to get the chords right. He was trying to get the phrasing right. And for like 2 hours, you just hear him in his room. Oh shit. He's just,
that's how it goes.
Yeah. And he's like trying to figure out this
not
song.
Your fault. It's just your turn. Yeah. That's so great.
Yeah. And he was so, into it. And, the other day, he said to me, he's like, I'm not really into the Beatles. I'm like, well, you haven't really heard the Beatles, and he's like, yeah, he's like, but Led Zeppelin, I think, is the best ever. I'm like, I agree with you. Zeppelin to me is the best ever, but you can't discount what the Beatles meant to music and meant to rock and roll. And then yesterday I hear him trying to learn Blackbird and, he's just going over it and figuring it out. And that's a beautiful thing, and I walked in his room, I go, that's a great song. He's like, well, how do you know? I could just tell by what you're playing. You're playing Blackbird. He's like, yeah, I'm trying to figure it out. I'm like, that's one of their best songs ever, in my opinion. And,
it's one of those, it's just like if you have a record and you've had it your whole life and you always skipped over that one song because back in the day, it just wasn't your thing. And then you accidentally get to hear it and you're like, oh my God, how did I not like that one? So those are the little jewels that he will come across with Beatles songs that, Across the Universe or something, 3 whole chords. But good Lord, if there's more going on there than hard guitar playing, right?
Right.
That's the part. That's the beauty of music.
I had a conversation with him about Joe Perry over the weekend, and I was telling him about, just the way Joe Perry, we were listening to Sick as a Dog. I'm like, listen to how the notes breathe. Listen how there's air, there's space in between those notes, and it's not all about playing as fast as you can or doing all that stuff. It's about feel. It's about where it's coming from. I said Joe Perry is one of the best at phrasing, at just playing the instrument and playing to the song, and doing what's right for the song. I mean, there's some guitar players out there that I love that will just have this solo that's just this monstrosity, and you're like, it doesn't really fit, but okay, it's like, but yeah, I'm like, we were having that conversation. It's cool to have that perspective from a 15-year-old and what he's listening to and how he's growing and how he's discovering. And I told him about David Gilmour, and he's like, well, I'm not really into Pink Floyd. I said, you don't have to be into Pink Floyd. Just listen to him play. Just listen to how he plays the guitar. And, I'm waiting for that situation to come about, because I think, in my opinion, he plays some of the most beautiful notes, and the way he plays is just so beautiful, the way he plays the instrument.
So great. I love that he's just passionate about it. Even how old is he now?
He's going to be 16 in January.
Oh man, you're in trouble, my friend. That's so great. he's at the hungry age, so you might even see a really great work ethic, just in business as well as the guitar, which is kids sometimes don't see that it's teaching the same thing.
Absolutely,
hard work pays off. So that's beautiful.
Well, Mike, again, it was great talking with you. Why don't you go ahead and plug your shop, if you got a website where people can find you that are listening.
I do. Thank you so much. So I just moved into my new location. I've been here now for about 30 days. It's 3 times the size of where I was before, so I think you'll find it really good for coming and hanging out with your friends. It's called Mike's Guitar Parlor at Mike's Guitar, 140 Pier Avenue in Hermosa Beach. Right before you hit the sand, I'm on the left side. And my website is at mikesguitar.com. And I can't wait to see you in here.
Yeah.
Just ask Jay. It's not so bad.
Next time I'm in California, I know, tickets are so cheap right now. They're like $80 for a round trip. But I know there are plans to come back out there once this is over. So maybe over winter break or spring break, whenever, we'll definitely be in the shop. But Mike
Don't be a stranger.
Mike Longacre, thank you for doing this. Thank you for appearing on the Hook Rocks, the Ultimate Rock Community Podcast. I appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Jay. See you, buddy.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. Check out the episode. Check out all his website. If you're in California, go into the shop. We'll talk again soon, everybody. Take care.
Jackson Hewitt handles your taxes and your stress. Inhale our no surprise price of $149 or less. Exhale, paying more for complicated taxes. You won't. Inhale new tax law knowledge. Exhale, missing out on your biggest refund. Certainly not. Don't miss paying $149 or less. Rest easy. Jackson Hewitt's got your taxes. Guaranteed. Limited time offer for new clients on federal returns. Participating locations only. Terms at jacksonhewitt.com/149.